This is a historical timeline of events that have impacted the education of English language learners in America. Meyer versus Nebraska, 1923. This began with a teacher having a crime about reading a Bible story in German to a 10-year-old child. At this time, Nebraska had a law that prohibited teaching in any language other than English for students who were under 8th grade or the age of 12. Also, there were sink or swim policies that were dominant at this time. The Supreme Court declared Nebraska's prohibition against foreign languages in elementary schools to be unconstitutional based on the 14th Amendment. This is important because it makes clear that the 14th Amendment provides protection for language minorities. The Civil Rights Act of 1964. This act prohibited discrimination based on race, religion, sex, or native origin in federally funded programs that are owned by the government, such as public schools. This act also opened the door for future English language learners policies. Aspira versus New York. This is a suit filed against the state of New York in which Aspira asked the court to order the Board of Education to integrate programs in public schools to help the Puerto Rican non-English speaking students in order for them to be able to understand and be successful in school. This led to the Aspira Consent Decree, which mandates transitional bilingual programs for Spanish surname students found to be more proficient in Spanish than in English. Serna versus Portales Municipal Schools in 1974. So this is about Judy Serna, a first grader in Portales, New Mexico. She was denied enrollment to school because she was unable to speak English. Also, this school district denied enrollment to those who had Spanish surnames. Her parents filed this lawsuit on the district, and the court was in favor of Serna, and the district was to implement bilingual cultural curriculum, revise procedures for assessing achievement, and hiring bilingual personnel that will benefit the schools. Lau versus Nichols in 1974. This originated in 1970 when San Francisco poverty lawyer learned that one of his client's child was failing school only because he did not understand the language. And the school districts claimed that their policies were not discriminatory because they did offer the same exact instruction to all of their students regardless of the national origin. The Supreme Court ruled that there was no equality of treatment, and by having the same facilities and materials was not equal nor effective for those Chinese-speaking children. The Equal Education Opportunities Act was passed due to this. So the Equal Education Opportunity Act of 1974 states that schools must create language programs for English language learners. This act also eliminated discrimination against any student or staff member based on their race or national origin. This required schools to take appropriate action regarding the creation and implementation of bilingual programs. Since there was a lack of specification on appropriate action, many schools took this with different meanings. Rios versus Reid, 1978. A New York school was accused of violating the limited English proficient students' rights by not providing the proper resources or programs. It was discovered that the schools were lacking in qualified teachers and the curriculum was taught mostly in English. There were no solutions to the problems provided by the court, but the federal office got involved to make sure improvements were made. This offered strong guidelines for what a bilingual classroom should include. Castaneda versus Picard, 1981. Raymondville Independent School District of Texas had language remediation programs that violated the Equal Education Opportunities Act of 1974. Because of this, the Castaneda test, or the three-pronged test, was put in place for districts to check to meet the needs of ELLs, or English language learners. And these three segments of the test are theory, so the school must pursue a program based on an educational theory recognized as sound or at least as legitimate experimental strategy. Practice, the school must actually implement the program with instructional practices, resources, and personnel necessary to transfer theory to reality. And results, where the school must not persist in a program that fails to produce results. So we have United States versus States of Texas in 1982. And this was a desegregation case that focused on the discrimination issues of whether if districts were providing an equal education opportunity to Mexican American students. This required for bilingual education to be statewide in grades kindergarten through 12. There was a court order of civil action in 50-81, and it eliminated discrimination on the grounds of race, color, or national origin in Texas public schools. A few months after the state was required to have bilingual education in grades K through 12, it was overturned on an appeal. And finally, the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001. It wasn't enacted until 2002, but it was a reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. It was regulated by the federal government and authorized by the state. There were 4 components to increase proficiency and decrease the education gap. These 4 components were accountability, flexibility, research-based education, and parent options. They wanted to make sure parents were involved in a language they could understand and have the needs met for the English language learners. This act also increased funding to states for bilingual programs and schools.